Lieutenant Hannah Kim stood before the imposing figure of Magistrate Dorian in the sterile chambers of Justice Hall aboard Space Station Harmony. The blue-skinned Alderian judge looked down at her from his elevated platform, his four eyes narrowing with what she recognized as contempt.
Lieutenant Kim, do you understand the charges against you?
Dorian's voice resonated through the chamber, the translation matrix giving his words a metallic edge. Hannah stood straight in her navy uniform, the silver earth emblem on her collar catching the light.
Yes, Magistrate.
Though I maintain my innocence.
Dorian's upper lip curled. The evidence is clear. Your human biological particles were found contaminating Air Filtration Unit 7G.
This is the third human-caused contamination this cycle. The screens around the chamber displayed microscopic images of what looked like ordinary skin cells and hair fragments. To Hannah, they seemed like the normal shedding any species would produce, but the Alderians had always been fastidious about cleanliness.
With respect, Magistrate, all species shed biological material.
The filters are designed to handle such particles. Human material contains unique proteins that require additional processing, Dorian countered. The station's resources are not unlimited, Lieutenant.
Hannah noticed several Alderians in the public viewing area nodding in agreement.
Since joining the Galactic Alliance 50 years ago, humans had been treated as newcomers who should be grateful for the opportunity to serve alongside the advanced species. The Alderians, with their 1,000-year head start in space exploration, were the worst offenders. The fine is 4,000 credits, Dorian announced, his tone suggesting the matter was closed.
4,000? Hannah couldn't hide her shock. That's 2 months' salary.
Perhaps this will encourage you to be more mindful of your biological impact, Dorian replied coolly. Humans must learn that joining the galactic community requires adapting to civilized standards. The audience chamber filled with murmurs. Hannah noticed a few sympathetic glances from a Tellurian engineer and a Vosic medical officer, species that had also faced Alderian prejudice in the past. Magistrate, Regulation 47b clearly states that unintentional contamination carries a maximum penalty of 500 credits for first offenses, Hannah said, pulling up the station's legal code on her datapad.
Dorian waved a six-fingered hand dismissively. This is not your first offense, Lieutenant. All humans aboard Harmony have received multiple warnings about contamination. But I personally have not.
Your species has been warned, Dorian interrupted.
The fine stands. Consider yourself fortunate. On Alderian vessels, humans are restricted to designated areas precisely because of these issues. Hannah bit her tongue. She'd worked too hard for her position to risk it with an outburst. As the station's environmental systems engineer, she was one of only 12 humans in senior roles on Harmony. Each day was already a challenge, proving herself capable despite the whispers and sideways glances. Payment is expected within 3 rotation cycles, Dorian added, already turning his attention to his console. Dismissed.
Outside the chamber, Hannah leaned against the curved wall of the corridor, fighting back frustrated tears. A ping from her data pad showed the official fine notice, along with a mandatory hygiene reminder course she was now required to complete.
Lieutenant Kim?
A voice broke her thoughts. She looked up to see Officer Jiho Lee, one of the few other humans stationed in her sector. His concerned expression told her he'd heard about the hearing.
4,000 credits, she said quietly. For normal human shedding. Jiho shook his head. This is getting worse.
Last week, they confined Young to quarters for exhaling too heavily near a sensitive instrument.
How am I supposed to pay this? Hannah asked, more to herself than Jiho.
I already send half my credits home to my parents on Earth Colony 5. You could file an appeal, Jiho suggested, though his tone lacked conviction.
With who? The Alderian Oversight Committee? Hannah sighed. They'd probably double it for wasting their time.
As they walked toward the habitat rings, Hannah's data pad chimed with a personal message.
It was from her husband, Taeho Park.
He was returning from Earth earlier than expected, his diplomatic mission completed ahead of schedule.
At least I'll have Taeho back soon, she said with a faint smile.
What Magistrate Dorian didn't know, what almost no one on Harmony Station knew, was that her husband had left as a minor diplomatic aide but was returning as something much more significant. The Alderians had always dismissed human political appointments as meaningless gestures, not worth their attention. They would soon learn differently. 3 days after her unfair fine, Hannah sat in her tiny quarters reviewing the station's maintenance logs. The screen cast a blue glow across her face as she scrolled through hundreds of reports. Her eyes were tired, but her determination remained strong. A chime at her door broke her concentration. She sighed, expecting another random inspection from station security. "Enter," she called. The door slid open to reveal Magistrate Dorian himself, accompanied by 2 Alderian officers. Hannah quickly stood, surprised by the judge's personal visit. "Lieutenant Kim," Dorian said, his 4 eyes scanning her quarters critically. "I've come to ensure you understand the seriousness of your violation." Hannah straightened her uniform. "I understand the fine has been assessed, Magistrate. I'm arranging payment." Dorian stepped further into her quarters without invitation, his tall frame nearly touching the ceiling. "Understanding and compliance are different matters. Your kind struggles with both." One of the officers began scanning her living space with a handheld device. "Is this an official inspection?" Hannah asked, keeping her voice level despite her rising anger. "Consider it educational," Dorian replied. "Humans have been aboard Harmony for nearly 6 years, yet you continue to ignore basic protocols. Your biological composition is simply incompatible with advanced station life." The second officer opened her food storage unit without permission. "Unregulated Earth spices," he noted disapprovingly. "Those are approved for human consumption," Hannah protested. Dorian waved dismissively. "The particles they release contaminate shared ventilation systems. Your human sense of smell is too primitive to detect the disruption, but to more evolved species, it's quite offensive." Hannah bit her tongue as the magistrate continued his lecture about human inadequacies, their inefficient sleep cycles, their excessive water consumption, their emotional instability. She had heard it all before. "Perhaps a reassignment to the Earth colonial sector would be more appropriate for you," Dorian suggested, making it sound like a generous offer rather than a demotion. "I've earned my position here through rigorous testing and performance," Hannah replied evenly. "My efficiency ratings exceed the station average by 17%. Dorian's upper lip curled slightly. "Numbers can be manipulated. Experience shows that humans rarely adapt successfully to integrated environments." As the Alderians continued their unofficial inspection, Hannah discreetly activated her personal datapad's recording function. Each condescending comment, each biased remark, each violation of her privacy, all captured for the evidence file she was building. "We'll be implementing new hygiene protocols specifically for human crew members," Dorian announced. "Daily decontamination scans, restricted movement during peak hours, and additional filtration fees." "Is this being applied to all species?" Hannah asked, already knowing the answer. "Other species don't present the same challenges," Dorian replied. His tone suggested he was being patient with a slow child. "This is for the greater good of Harmony." After the Alderians finally left, Hannah slumped onto her bed, her head in her hands. The recording had captured everything, adding to her growing collection of evidence. But would it ever make a difference? Her data pad chimed with an incoming transmission, encrypted and private. Her heart lifted as Taeho's face appeared on the screen. "I miss you," he said, his warm smile instantly improving her mood. "2 more days until I dock." "I can't wait," Hannah replied, careful not to say too much on an open channel, despite the encryption. "How was Earth?" Taeho's expression became more serious. "Productive. Very productive. The council was receptive to our concerns." His diplomatic training made him cautious with his words, but Hannah understood the meaning behind them. What Taeho couldn't say openly was that he had been appointed as the new human ambassador to the Galactic Alliance. After years of humans having only minor representative roles, Earth had finally secured a full voting seat on the Alliance Council. Taeho would arrive not as a diplomatic courier but as one of the most powerful human officials in the sector. I have some things to show you when you arrive, Hannah said, gesturing subtly to her data files.
It's been an educational few days. Taeho nodded, understanding her meaning. Keep documenting everything. It matters more than you might think right now.
After ending the call, Hannah returned to her work with renewed purpose.
The Eldarians had no idea what was coming.
For years, they had dismissed humans as an insignificant species, unworthy of real power in galactic politics. They had never bothered to learn about Hannah's marriage to Taeho, assuming her personal relationships were as inconsequential as they considered her. Soon, Magistrate Dorian would learn that the woman he had fined and lectured was married to his political equal, someone with the authority to challenge the comfortable power structure the Eldarians had maintained for centuries. But for now, Hannah would continue gathering evidence, building her case silently and methodically. Taeho Park's arrival at Harmony Station was deliberately understated. The docking bay contained only the standard maintenance crew as his diplomatic shuttle settled onto the landing pad. No ceremonial welcome, no official greeters, exactly as he had requested. Hannah waited near the security checkpoint, dressed in her regular uniform rather than formal attire.
When Taeho emerged through the airlock, they embraced professionally, appearing to most observers as colleagues rather than spouses.
"Welcome back to Harmony Station, Diplomatic Envoy Park," she said formally, for the benefit of nearby staff. Only when they reached their private quarters did they truly reunite, embracing tightly.
"I've missed you," Taeho said, holding her close.
"You have no idea what it's been like here," Hannah replied, finally letting her frustration show.
"It's getting worse every cycle."
Taeho's expression grew serious.
"Show me everything."
For the next hour, Hannah presented her evidence, recordings of Dorian's educational visit, documentation of disproportionate fines against human crew members, maintenance logs showing that other species shed comparable biological material without penalties.
Taeho listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions.
He had not yet revealed his new ambassadorial status to anyone on the station.
For now, he was still listed as a mid-level diplomatic envoy, a position the Eldarians considered unimportant.
"This is extensive," he said finally. "But we need more. I need to understand the full scope before making any official moves." "I've been working with Jiho from security and Subin from medical," Hannah explained.
"They've been collecting their own evidence."
The following day, they met with Jiho and Subin in the station's arboretum, one of the few places where audio surveillance was hampered by the dense vegetation. "The security protocols for humans were changed 3 months ago," Jiho explained quietly as they walked among the alien plants. "Humans now undergo random searches at twice the rate of any other species.
The official reason is heightened biosecurity concerns."
Subin nodded. "In medical, we've seen 43 cases of humans being placed on restricted duty for health concerns that wouldn't trigger restrictions for any other species.
Minor allergic reactions, slight fatigue, normal conditions that somehow become critical when humans experience them." Taeho absorbed this information with a diplomat's neutral expression. "And have any humans filed official complaints?" Jiho laughed bitterly. "The few who tried found themselves reassigned to remote postings within weeks."
As their investigation deepened, Taeho used his diplomatic access codes to examine restricted communication logs between Eldarian officials. What he found surprised him. "They're afraid of us," he told Hannah late one night in their quarters after sweeping for listening devices. "Not because we're a threat now, but because of how quickly we're advancing."
"Afraid of humans?" Hannah looked skeptical.
"They treat us like we're barely evolved." "That's the public face," Taeho explained.
"But privately, the Eldarian High Council is concerned about human technological development."
"It took them 3 centuries to advance from early spaceflight to their current level.
We've done it in less than 1.
The next day, Subin provided the final piece of the puzzle. She had accessed the station's secure medical database through her role in the xenobiology department. "Look at this," she whispered, showing them her datapad in a quiet corner of the mess hall.
"The Eldarians have been collecting human biological samples without consent during routine medical checks. They're studying us intensively."
The data showed detailed analyses of human cellular regeneration, neurological processing, and adaptive immunity, all capabilities that humans possess to a greater degree than Eldarians. This report specifically mentions human adaptability as a concerning evolutionary advantage, Subin pointed out. They've been systematically gathering intelligence on human biological capabilities for years. Tejo studied the information carefully. So the discrimination isn't just cultural prejudice, it's strategic. They're trying to limit human advancement within the Alliance by restricting our opportunities and access. What can we do? Jiho asked. We're outnumbered 20-1 on this station. We don't need numbers, Tejo replied quietly.
We need the right moment and the right audience. He turned to Hannah. When is the next Galactic Alliance gathering on Harmony?
3 days from now, she answered.
The quarterly review session. All major species representatives will attend. Tejo nodded, a plan forming in his mind. Then we have 3 days to prepare.
The Eldarians have been telling a story about humans being unprepared for advanced society. It's time we revealed their true concerns and showed the Alliance exactly what humanity has to offer. As the group dispersed, Tejo remained in the mess hall, watching Magistrate Dorian holding court with several Eldarian officials across the room. The judge was laughing, completely unaware that the husband of the human he had humiliated was now armed with evidence of systematic discrimination and hidden fear and would soon reveal himself as the new human ambassador to the Galactic Alliance. The time for quiet investigation was coming to an end. The time for action was approaching. The Grand Assembly Hall of Harmony Station gleamed under ceremonial lighting. Representatives from 17 species filled the tiered seating arranged in a perfect circle. At the center stood a floating platform where speakers would address the Galactic Alliance members.
Magistrate Dorian entered with a group of senior Eldarian officials, their blue skin and formal attire marking them as the dominant presence in the room.
Hannah stood at her assigned position near the environmental controls, wearing her lieutenant's uniform with perfect precision. From her position, she could see everything but remained nearly invisible to the dignitaries.
Tejo had not yet arrived.
As far as the station records showed, he was still a minor diplomatic envoy, not warranting attendance at such a high-level gathering. The Alliance Director, a neutral Talarian, called the meeting to order.
Today's quarterly review will address interspecies cooperation, resource allocation, and safety protocols. First, we will hear reports from station administration.
Magistrate Dorian took the central platform, his tall frame commanding attention. Harmony continues to function efficiently through strict adherence to regulations.
My judicial office has ensured all species comply with our standards.
He activated a display showing statistics of violations and fines.
We've seen a notable decrease in infractions among most established species.
However, he paused, his upper lip curling slightly. Newer members of the Alliance continue to struggle with basic protocols. The display highlighted human violation rates in bright red, 4 times higher than any other species. Several representatives murmured among themselves. The human presence, while potentially valuable in time, requires significant oversight, Dorian continued. Their primitive biological systems and underdeveloped social awareness necessitate special restrictions. Hannah's hands tightened on her control panel, but her face remained neutral. She watched as several representatives nodded in agreement, accepting Dorian's assessment without question.
Just last week, Dorian said, I personally had to fine a human officer for contaminating essential filtration systems.
These primitive species must learn that.
The chamber doors slid open, interrupting Dorian mid-sentence. Tejo Park entered, but not in the simple attire of a diplomatic envoy.
He wore the formal blue and silver robes of a full ambassador, bearing the Earth emblem and Alliance Council insignia. A confused murmur spread through the assembly.
The Talarian director looked down at his information panel with surprise.
I apologize for the interruption, Tejo said calmly, walking toward the center platform.
Ambassador Tejo Park, Earth representative to the Galactic Alliance Council.
My credentials were updated in the central database yesterday. Dorian's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in confusion.
There must be some mistake. The human contingent has no council seat. The director checked his panel again. The credentials appear correct, Magistrate. Earth was granted full council status at the last assembly on Terra Nova. Ambassador Park is recognized. Tejo stepped onto the platform beside Dorian. Thank you, Director.
I believe Magistrate Dorian was discussing a recent fine assigned to a human officer for biological contamination.
Would that officer happen to be Lieutenant Hannah Kim of Environmental Systems? Dorian straightened. Yes. The penalty was fully justified under station regulations. Lieutenant Kim, Tejo said, would you join us, please? All eyes turned to Hannah as she left her station and walked to the platform.
She stood tall despite the scrutiny.
Lieutenant Kim is my wife, Tejo announced to the stunned assembly.
Her fine of 4,000 credits, more than any other similar violation in station history, is just one example of the systematic discrimination humans face aboard Harmony.
Dorian's skin darkened with anger. This is inappropriate. Personal relationships have no bearing on legal matters.
Then let's discuss the legal matters directly, Tejo replied, activating his own data display. For the past 3 days, I've been conducting an official investigation into the treatment of humans aboard this station. The display showed comparison charts of fines, restrictions, and regulations by species. The human rates towered above all others. These disparities cannot be explained by behavioral differences, Tejo continued. They represent a pattern of targeted discrimination. A Vosic representative leaned forward. These numbers are concerning, Ambassador.
Why have we not heard of this before? Because, Tejo replied, those who complained faced immediate reassignment or further penalties.
He played a recording of Dorian's educational visit to Hannah's quarters.
The magistrate's condescending remarks about human inferiority echoed through the chamber. This is taken out of context, Dorian protested, his voice rising. Humans do require additional oversight due to their biological limitations. Is that really the reason? Tejo asked quietly. He displayed the classified Alderian reports analyzing human biological capabilities. Or is it because your government fears our potential?
The assembly erupted in shocked conversation. The Tellarian director called for order.
These are classified documents. Dorian shouted. This is a security breach.
These are illegal studies conducted without consent, Tejo corrected.
The real breach is the Alderian violation of Alliance medical ethics codes. Other representatives began asking questions, demanding explanations. The Navari ambassador, whose species had joined the Alliance only 20 years before humans, stood up. We have experienced similar treatment, she announced. Though not as severe. If the Alderians fear biological competition, perhaps we should all examine their research programs more closely.
Dorian looked around the room, suddenly aware that his position was crumbling. The confident judge was gone, replaced by a politician scrambling for control. The regulations exist for everyone's safety, he insisted, but his voice had lost its authority.
Then why, Tejo asked, do they only seem to apply to some of us?
The emergency session of the Galactic Alliance Council began just 6 hours after the confrontation. The circular chamber now held only voting members and essential staff. Tejo sat at the human delegation's newly installed console, reviewing his notes while representatives from 16 other species filed in with solemn expressions. Magistrate Dorian sat with the Alderian delegation, his earlier confidence replaced by stiff formality.
Occasional glances toward Tejo revealed his concern about what might come next.
The Tellarian director called the session to order. This council must address the evidence presented by Ambassador Park regarding discriminatory practices aboard Harmony Station. We will hear proposals for resolution. All eyes turned to Tejo, expecting demands for punishment or reparations. He stood calmly and approached the central platform. The human delegation does not seek retribution, he began, surprising many in the chamber. What happened here reflects a larger problem within our alliance, the fear of difference and the protection of established power.
Murmurs spread through the assembly as he continued. Instead of punishment, I propose a new governance protocol for all alliance facilities. Tejo's display showed a detailed framework for station management. Equal representation on all administrative bodies. Transparent enforcement of regulations. Regular review of outcomes to identify disparities. The Nuvari ambassador nodded approval. This would benefit all newer alliance members.
Additionally, Tejo continued, I believe we can demonstrate humanity's commitment to the alliance through action rather than words.
He signaled toward the entrance where Hannah waited with Jiho and Subin.
They wheeled in a device about the size of a food replicator. Lieutenant Kim and her team have developed an enhanced filtration system that addresses the actual contamination issues Harmony has experienced.
Hannah stepped forward. Our research found that the station's air processors struggle with mixed-species biological particles. This isn't just a human problem, it affects all of us. Subin activated the device. Holographic displays showed microscopic views of the filtration process.
This system uses a new approach, Hannah explained.
Rather than trying to remove all biological material, which is impossible on a multi-species station, it creates a neutralizing field that breaks down problematic particle combinations.
Jiho added, initial tests show 94% reduction in filter clogging and 89% decrease in cross-species allergen reactions. The Vosik medical chief examined the data with interest.
This could resolve health complaints across the entire station network. We offer this technology freely to the Alliance, Tejo said.
No patents, no exclusive rights.
This is humanity's contribution to our shared future.
The council chambers filled with impressed conversation. The Eldarian chief delegate leaned over to whisper urgently to Dorian, who looked increasingly uncomfortable.
After technical questions and discussion, the Tellarian director called for decisions. The council will vote on Ambassador Park's governance protocol and the implementation of the human filtration technology. The vote was decisive.
15 species voted in favor, with only the Eldarians abstaining. Even this was significant, they had not voted against the proposals. Additionally, the director continued, this council must address the administrative issues on Harmony Station.
Magistrate Dorian, please stand.
Dorian rose slowly, his posture rigid.
In light of evidence showing biased application of regulations, this council removes you from judicial authority on Harmony. You will be reassigned to Aldarian diplomatic services on your homeworld.
Dorian's skin darkened, but he offered no protest.
Finally, we establish a new judicial oversight committee with representatives from all Alliance species, the director announced. Lieutenant Hannah Kim is appointed as the human representative, with promotion to commander effective immediately.
Hannah's eyes widened in surprise. Tejo smiled at her from across the chamber, pride evident in his expression.
As the session concluded, representatives approached the human delegation with newfound respect.
The Nuvari ambassador clasped Hannah's hand warmly. Your approach to this situation has changed many minds, she said.
Seeking solutions rather than vengeance shows true diplomatic wisdom. Later that evening, in their quarters, Hannah and Tejo finally had a moment alone.
Commander Kim, Tejo said with a smile.
It has a nice ring to it. Hannah shook her head in disbelief. I never expected this outcome. I just wanted fair treatment.
You achieved much more, Tejo said, taking her hand.
The filtration system alone would have improved humanity's standing.
But the way you handled everything, with dignity despite provocation, that's what truly impressed the council. On the other side of the station, the Eldarians held their own private meeting.
Their chief delegate addressed the subdued group. We misunderstood the humans, he admitted. We saw their rapid advancement as a threat rather than an opportunity. This error has cost us influence within the Alliance. What now? One of his aides asked.
We adapt, the delegate replied. The humans have demonstrated both ingenuity and restraint, rare qualities in combination.
Perhaps we have something to learn from them after all. 3 months later, Harmony Station had transformed.
The new filtration systems functioned throughout the facility. The Judicial Oversight Committee, with Hannah as one of its leaders, had revised over 200 regulations to ensure fair application across all species. Most significantly, when a new crisis threatened the station, a cascading power failure that endangered thousands, it was human and Eldarian engineers working side by side who found the solution.
As Taeho observed to the council afterward, true harmony isn't the absence of difference.
It's finding strength in our diverse capabilities and wisdom in our shared purpose.
The end.